This is a Gear Network production. Coming to you live from Greece, New York, from the Gear Network studios, this is Talking Wrestling. Here is your host, J.C. Money. And ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived. Finally, we are here. The Gear Radio Network, the GM Radio Entertainment Network is here. I am JC Money, and this is Talking Wrestling. First of all, thank you very much to everybody that has offered your support, your kind words, your anticipation. I hope to not let you down. Talking Wrestling is only going to be one of the various programming that we'll have here on the Gear Radio Network. It just happens to be an area of expertise that I'm in. Before I go ahead and divulge into my history and what this show is going to provide, I would like to send a big shout out to a YouTube user, A. Zubarus. That's Zubareus, and I hope I did your name justice there, because you've certainly done the Silver Surfer Nintendo game justice by this cover that you have graciously let me play here on my podcast. I do appreciate you giving me your blessing. This is an awesome track, and going through his YouTube page, he has done quite a few covers for quite a few different NES games, and if you're a video game nerd like I am, and a vintage junkie like I am, if you have all of these, if you still have the cartridges like I do, give this guy's YouTube page a look. There is good stuff on there right now. I'm actually just got finished listening to the RoboCop 3 cover that he did, which is pretty solid. The dude knows his stuff. So yeah, keep rocking on, Zubarus. The YouTube link is going to be on the Gear Network Facebook page, which will also be on the Gear Network Twitter page, which is facebook.com/Gear GERE Network, or twitter.com/Gear GERE Network. Let's talk a little bit about wrestling, shall we? The format of this show is going to be a little bit different. Those of you that follow the Pain Clinic Pro Wrestling Talk Show on Hot Talk, or not Hot Talk anymore, it hasn't been Hot Talk in years, Sports Radio 1280 WHTK here in Rochester, New York, know that they do a major on the major wrestling companies and a sort of a minor on the local stuff. And then, on the flip side of that, you have the Take It Deep Network with my cousin, Tiger Smith, Chris X. I know him as Adam, but most of you may know him as Hobie. On TNX Bomb Squad, they're 100% local. They don't talk any of the big-time stuff, the WWE stuff. That's their MO, that's what they do, and hey, that's cool. Me, I'm going to be kind of like a hybrid. I'm going to be, a complement to both shows, more or less. I'm not going to be competing with anybody. I don't think the competition, I don't think about it like that. I'm not trying to put anybody out of business. Certainly, Pain Clinic has been around for years and years and years and years, and they will be around for years and years and years. God bless them. They are great. I love every single one of them there. I love that show. I listen all the time, and you should too, because it's on iHeartRadio, so go with that. And same with the Take It Deep Network. Take It Deep Network, if you're into the local stuff, into indies without much of a filter at all, that is definitely your cup of tea. I've been a guest on there a few times without a filter. Giving a little history on me, I have been in the wrestling business now 14 years. 12 and a half of those have been active, and now I'm more of a behind-the-scenes /coach ambassador for local wrestling in the area, good local wrestling in the area. And a lot of people who know who I am, either love me or hate me. And you, the podcasting audience here, you're going to either love some of my takes or you're going to hate some of my takes. But I do have takes. I do have a very strong opinion on a lot of things, and it may not be for the weak at heart. And now, unlike the Take It Deep Network, I will be very radio friendly, which means, simply put, I'm not going to, every other word is not going to be a curse word. I'll certainly, if I need to get my point across, I'll get my point across, but I'm going to try and do it in as radio friendly of a manner as I can, because realistically, wrestling fans are not just us old-time hardcore fans that have been around for a long time. And by hardcore, I mean die hard, not hardcore old-school ECW type fans, because those folks, God bless y'all, but you are a unique breed. But I more or less mean the wrestling fan. It's not just older people now. It's always it's about kids, and so I really want to try and make this as kid friendly as possible. Will the occasional slip up happen? Yes, it will. Thankfully, we have censors that can take care of that. So I appreciate all you listening. And the format for the show is going to be different than Take It Deep. Take It Deep just kind of goes right into it, asking questions locally about stuff like that. And we're going to be doing it in segments. Typically, segment 1 is going to talk about WWE and maybe TNA. Not a big fan of TNA, honestly. Global Force Wrestling, which is Jeff Jarrett's new upstart promotion. We'll talk about that type of stuff. Then as we go into segment 2, maybe segment 3, depending on the length of the podcast, depending on where everything is going, we'll get into more of the local stuff, as well as interview a local independent wrestler. Doesn't even necessarily have to be local. By local, I mean people that are within my network. So Western New York, Central New York, Eastern New York. I mean, I've got connections in all the avenues there. So I can bring a unique experience to the podcasting world, more or less the professional wrestling world. Now, going forward, from this show. This show is the show that's kind of setting the stage, more or less. I am going to have a guest on this show. We're going to talk some local wrestling because this past weekend has been pretty controversial, so to speak, with regards to a couple of things. Eric Emanon is going to join us later on in the podcast, and he will shed some light on a couple of things as far as what he sees, where he's working, what he's up to, how he got started, what he thinks of the current product, both the WWE, TNA, whatever, we're going to get all down. And that's going to be a regular thing. Also, what I'd like to do in future shows as well is, if you're not liking the Gear Network fan page, like the damn page, please. I am fully engaged with my audience, and I would like to be fully engaged with the audience. I would like to have your comments on the show, whether it's feedback, whether it's someone you want on there, whether it's, hey, I'm announcing that, in week 10, so-and-so is going to be on here, post your questions for them. And I'd like to get you guys involved as well, because without the fans, without the listeners, this is nothing. This is a waste of time, and I don't want it to be a waste of time. I'm very passionate about things that I enjoy, and I enjoy this. So if you don't like it, please do. Facebook.com/Gear Network, and when we come right back, we'll talk some local wrestling. This is the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to Talking Wrestling and the Gear Radio Network. Good night now!
And thank you very much, Gigi, for that station identification. Welcome back, everybody. This is segment 2 here, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit of local wrestling. So this past week, there was a big show being promoted. This was out in Elmira, New York. Mind you, on the same weekend that there were some 2CW shows. And 2CW, which is Central New York, initially based out of Syracuse, but they were running 2 shows, a Friday, Saturday show. They typically bring in a bunch of names, and they do this, and they do it very well. There was an iPay-per-view on Friday. Well, there's another company that is long established out in the New Jersey area type thing, but they bring their license in here and let a couple of no names run the joint, called ECPW, and they were running out of Elmira, New York, and they had quite a stacked card. The likes of Vader, the Sandman, Velvet Sky from TNA, Tito Santana, who I've been in the ring with, and he can still go. for all intents and purposes, that show should have drawn a very sizable crowd. I would say probably, if promoted properly, the show could have drawn at least 1,000 people. I know if ESW had that group of talent, that group of names, they would have easily had 1,000, 2,000 people easily, because ESW regularly, in Buffalo, by the way, ESW regularly draws rather big. So, for the company, which, again, I don't necessarily know anybody from there, honestly. I mean, there's a few people that are locals that are, that go there. A couple of friends of mine that no longer go there now, thankfully. But, there's a couple of people I can't stand that go there, which is kind of par for the course, I guess, there. But a couple of people that run it, one's name is the other one is L. I've never heard of the guy, but apparently he heard of me. So if you want to know the names of these people, I am sure, because I'm going to censor these out just for security reasons, just for reasons that, I'm not sure. ECPW, I'll say who it is, but as far as the people that run it, if you want to know the names, go to the Facebook page. I'm sure there's going to be a plethora of responses to this. But anyways, they're horrible promoters. They're ridiculous in every sense of the word. They tried to run out here in Rochester last year, 2013 summertime, in a very, very tiny fire hall near that's right across the street from an amusement park known as Seabreeze. And I mean, at the most, it could have probably fit about 70 people in that fire hall, and they maybe had about 70 people combined between the workers and who were backstage and the crowd that was, maybe a family and friend, some family and friends of some workers there. I mean, it was poorly run. It was poorly produced. It lost money. It was a waste of time. It was something that I was actually banned from attending because of some outspokenness that I had towards a certain few members of their roster, namely the promoters and a couple of their trying to figure out the most politically correct way to say this group's name without acknowledging them, except that there is a popular television station aimed at the African American demographic that share the same initials as this particular group does. I was very outspoken with them because they suck, and that combined with the fact that the promoter or the booker or one of the whatever the hell does actually made a personal slam on a longtime area veteran, I.B. Green. Not so much him, not so much his wife, who's also been in the business, but his children, I.B. Green's children. Kids are off limits, no matter what. That's a golden rule. Kids are off limits. You do not drag children into your pissing contests. You don't. LDC did. And for that reason alone, I didn't like him. Then I come to find out he's got some sort of issue with my cousin, Tiger Smith, and all of a sudden, because of his issues with Tiger Smith, topped with the fact that the African-American demographic channel that has had their initials ripped off by that group had problems with my cousin, it all of a sudden became, well, we've got problems with JC Money. JC Money doesn't know any of you clowns, but combined with that, I wanted to see nothing more than that company fail. I saw it last year in Rochester, and I am happy to say that I saw it again this past Saturday. This past Saturday, they instead of going into a local VFW or hell, a fire hall that could have held the 70 people that attended, no, they went into a hockey arena. The first arena, or whatever it was called, I'm not sure, but it was an arena that could have easily sat 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, maybe. I don't know. From the angles I saw, it looked like a very large venue. And they got maybe about 70 people there. They got the crowd at that big venue that they should have had at the small venue here in Rochester. They didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? Because they're freaking ECPW and they're stupid. I mean, seriously. And you know what? This is the type of stuff you're going to get with me, too, especially when it comes to the local stuff. I don't really have a filter when it comes to these types of things. I don't really care if my controversial comments annoy or irritate the people that have it coming to them, because quite honestly, there is a reason why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's because it's true. I don't make any of this up. In the scripted world of professional wrestling, you cannot script the idiocy that happens behind the scenes. And I bring it all out to light because no one else will, and no one else wants to. No one else wants to because they're afraid they're going to attach their name to something. They're afraid that it's going to be, negative press or whatever. You know what? All press is good press. And to me, if you're listening to this and you tell your friend, "Hey, man, this JC Money guy just ran down this," or "he said this," you know what? I don't agree with him. But you know what? You're going to listen to the next one. You're going to listen to the next one. And that's what it's all about. Engaging, informing, having some fun, living the dream. Except, of course, if you're booking ECPW in either Elmira or Rochester, when clearly none of that worked. So, hopefully the actual promoter of ECPW finally wakes up, wisens up, and stops being a money mark for these guys, and actually sees that they are contributing to the death of his company's name, which, as I understand, has been around for in excess of 25 years out in the New Jersey and Pennsylvania areas. So if he really took a look and really thought about it and really looked at it and see that ECPW initials in New York are not carried with great respect. They are not carried with love, passion, and tradition. They are nobody. I've not heard one person be like, "Yeah, I can't wait to go to this ECPW show." I can't. Anytime I've heard the initials ECPW, it's usually followed by "sucks." And with that, we will pause for station identification once again. This is Talking Wrestling on the Gear Radio Network. A successful product does not become a successful product without proper advertising. If you would like your show advertised here on the Gear Radio Network, rates are very, very low to start off here. Give us a shout on Facebook, facebook.com/Gear Network. Send us a message. We can work out the details. Get your brand promoted here on the Gear Radio Network.
Sports news and fun. This is the Gear Radio Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Segment 3 of Talking Wrestling is here, and joining me on the line right now, a mainstay in the Western New York independent scene, branching out even soon maybe to Connecticut, from what I understand. Maybe he'll tell us a little bit about that later. Eric Emanon joins us on Talking Wrestling. Eric, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Glad to be a part of it.
Yes, you are a part of history. You're the first guest, official guest.
I like being a part of history. I've done a lot in wrestling that I feel like has been a part of local wrestling history, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a good point to start. First of all, for those who may not know who Eric Emanon is, tell us a little bit about yourself, more or less. Where the hell did you come from? What got you into wrestling, and how did you begin?
Well, it's kind of funny how that you asked that. It started kind of like everybody else did. We were all wrestling in a backyard as kids, and I stumbled into Tiger Smith and the McLeods and all of them, and it was through a friend to a friend kind of thing, and watching New Millennium Wrestling on TV locally in Rochester, and watching all that growing up. I saw JC on there, and there was kind of that inspiration. He was a little guy, I was a little guy, and I was like, oh, there's hope. So later on down the road, around 2003, I started training and had one of my first matches be September 11th of 2004. So we're caught up on that whole 10 years since I had my first match thing, and it kind of stemmed from there. There was really never a moment where I thought about wanting to do something differently, and it all just kind of, snowballed into this, giant thing where, I go from being part of the Emanon Boys to being a two-time tag team champion, one-time junior television champion, and, now I'm here with the Underworld Cartel in Buffalo and kind of representing myself, elsewhere, other places. So it's been a long, fun trip. I can't say I really regret anything about it, but, it's definitely been fun.
That's it's interesting when you mention you starting to train about 10 years ago. Let's go back then. Take me through the process. How did you discover Williams martial arts?
Well, it was funny. I actually discovered it through a buddy of mine. He was wrestling at the time. His name's Nate Ashton Emanon, and we kind of started the whole Emanon Boys thing. And
I remember the name. I don't remember the person.
Yeah, he literally was a spitting image, just uglier version of me, if that kind of makes any sense. He had long blonde hair, I had long blonde hair, and we both liked high-flying wrestling, and we wanted to be the Hardy Boys. It was terrible, but that's what we wanted to be. And,
I remember that. Well, I remember you more or less. You always stuck out, but I for the life of me don't remember the other one.
Yeah, he disappeared. Shortly after. I think it was like three months after we first had our match in September of '04. He kind of fell off the map and disappeared, and that's when Brian showed up, and me and Brian became the Emanon Boys that everybody knows in Western New York now. But the training was ridiculous because we showed up. He actually Nate Ashton told me about the school, and that was when do you remember Who's Your Daddy from RCW?
Yes,
his stepson.
I do remember Who's Your Daddy.
That was his stepson, and so
Nate Ashton was his stepson.
Yeah.
Oh wow! All right.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it came full circle. We kind of met through the RCW shows, and branched out from there, and that's how we found Williams Martial Arts. That's
wow. All right, you learn something new every day. I thought I knew everything, but I definitely don't. Okay, so we got your history there. Who are some of your inspirations? Be it local, be it national, old school, new school, whatever. I mean, what makes Eric Emanon Eric Emanon? Where does your mix come from? Because I've seen you go from as you mentioned, being a Hardy Boy, big extreme Hardy Boy fan, to kind of really establishing yourself as more of a. You're definitely not the same Eric that broke in. I can tell you that much. We've got your own personality. You have, in my opinion, just from watching from afar, have established yourself far past Brian. I think at this stage of the game, people are looking past the Brian Emanon era and looking at you and being like, this kid's got something. He's got the beard, he's got the personality, he's got the tats, he's got the, you do not resemble the Hardy Boy at all. So, but what makes Eric Emanon Eric Emanon?
You bring that up, and I'll kind of go into that after answering your question. But the whole, like local inspirations were, they were people like JC Money and Tiger Smith, and
incidentally, I did not pay him to say that.
Fury. If you remember Fury,
yes.
Before he became Brian Emanon.
I sure do. He was always dances with Hellcat to us because of his Indian heritage, but we all joked about that.
And so, people like Hellcat, watching people like Hellcat work, and I remember Dickie Sanchez, Hubert Boy 2, a la Brody Lee, a la Luke Harper. I remember Jimmy Olsen, Jake and Vig, just all those local guys I just watched. Freddie Midnight was another one, and Spaz. Spaz was another one that I loved watching when I was a kid, when I would go to local shows. And so, getting to work some of these guys in the past couple of years has been phenomenal. Nationally, I like to study a lot of different generations of wrestling. So, you get the Macho Man Randy Savages, and you get the Ricky the Dragon Steamboats, and you watch stuff from WrestleManias, and it's just I like to just kind of take everything I like about what worked for those people and kind of just throw them into a mix. So I loved Savage, I loved Steamboat. Just kind of going into like the 90s. The 90s were my time. The Attitude Era was when I started watching wrestling. So you got people like the Hardy Boys that I loved watching, Edge and Christian. I always loved Edge's charisma and just his facial expressions, no matter what, always told a story. And I was always a huge Stone Cold fan growing up.
Who wasn't? Who wasn't? I remember Stone Cold, and when Stone Cold came out, I was in high school, which I guess shows my age now, but and it made it cool. He made it cool to be a wrestling fan, to be proud to say, hey, I'm wearing a Stone Cold shirt. This dude flipped somebody off and dropped him on his head. That's awesome. So yeah, Stone Cold was an inspiration to a lot. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then I was going to say more recently, like going into the 2000s and beyond. You got when CM Punk was in Ring of Honor. That's when I first saw CM Punk when he was coming out to the ring to AFI, and he had the long blonde hair like me. And I really connected to him. And then you got the American Dragon, now known as Daniel Bryan, who another small guy. Who's made it somewhere in this business, and that's really what we're seeing a lot of nowadays. Is a lot of smaller guys, like even Colin Delaney, for instance, a smaller guy who actually made it somewhere and did something with his career. And it's just those are kind of the whole overall you watch this stuff growing up, and you watch how they go from superstars to being actually celebrities now. They're still superstars, but they kind of more resemble a celebrity now instead of the buff comic book hero that you would see back in the 80s and 90s.
It's true. It is a lot of that happens to be, when you mention eras, there are certain eras in pro wrestling. Of course, and I can go back to studying, how the 90s worked for you. The 80s worked for me. I was watching, the golden era, when the golden era really started taking, I mean, my first real memory of wrestling was WrestleMania 1.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that, either it was on, it must have been on a VHS tape. I think they were showing it, as legend has it, in movie theaters and closed circuit television back then. But I remember watching it at my cousin Ben's house on VHS tape and just being drawn to it. And then as I got up, I did the very same thing that you mentioned, and that kind of gives me a little bit of pride here with you, because you get it. I watch different eras. I even go back as far as, watching the 70s, stuff from the 70s with, Pedro Morales, and his freaking arm hair, and Bruno Sammartino, of course, that type of stuff. And then you watch a little bit from each era, and you kind of combine the style and make it your own. And a lot of people don't get that. And so to hear you say that you get that, that's pretty awesome. So we'll move on to let's talk about the Emanon boys, the Eric and Brian version, not the Nate Ashton. When you were young when you started.
Yeah.
You were very young, and legally in New York State you cannot wrestle until you were 18. I don't know if that's changed now with all the illegal rules that are being broken, with certain places. Cough, UW. That's all right. And incidentally, again, like I said in the disclaimer earlier, don't hold my guests accountable for anything I say. This is my show. But anyways, you had to be 18 to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
Once you turned 18, the moment you turned 18, you were at the Next Era Wrestling School saying, I'm here just like I said I was going to be 3 or 4 years ago, when everybody said I was just a stupid kid. And then, not too long after that, you and Brian debuted as a tag team. Take me through that time. Take me through that time period. What was it like getting the opportunity? What was it like teaming with Brian? And kind of the end of that particular chapter.
It was I remember specifically, I came back that October, which I'm an October baby. So I came back to the school in October and started training, quite literally every other day, because Tiger was at the school at every day, and there was always somebody there, so there's always people to go hang out with and just go train, and Cassius Kutcher, Kripke Keegan, Titus Smith, what was her name, Jessie Bell. They were all down there. They were all just starting at that point in time, and I remember the reaction, because I came in and Tiger, looks at me and he goes, "Let's see what you got. Let's see what you remember." And I come in and just start bumping, and the looks on their faces were priceless, because they had no idea who I was. And they're like, "Who is this kid? We've never seen him before, and we're here quite a bit. Like, who is he?" And Tiger just starts laughing. He goes, "You haven't missed a beat. Let's see if we can get some of this rust off you. Start chaining." So we start chaining, and he's like, "Good to have you back. Let's see what you can do." And so March 8th of 2008 rolls around, and I had my debut professionally in old school professional wrestling in a giant, it was like a 6 or 8 man big old cluster. And it was one of those experiences where, you know, I'll forever be grateful for OSPW giving me that shot, you know, taking that shot and throwing me in there. And, you know, that was the moment when I came out to the ring that I realized, you know, this is what I want. And not too long after that, Tripp had destroyed his knee in some way, shape, or form. I don't remember what happened, but he had crutches and he was out for a couple of shows. And that's when he handed over the tag belt to me. And me and Brian became the tag team champions. We started wrestling all over Western New York as the unified NEW OSPW tag team champions, losing it a couple months later to the Underworld Cartel. You know, that was kind of the beginning stages, and kind of backtrack back to, I think it was 2000 or 2001. I'd seen Brian at the first ever Kayfabe Dojo show, the outdoor show where the rope broke.
That was 03.
And I saw him, and I looked at my buddy who we were wrestling in the backyard with when I was a kid. I looked at Brian, and I looked at my buddy, and I go, "Me and him are going to be tag team champions someday." And, you know, it happened. And it was one of those moments that was kind of surreal, because it was, you know, I kind of accomplished what I set out to do when I was a kid, and then I kind of settled for a little bit and, you know, kind of buried myself and put myself into a shadow of Brian. And, you know, one thing kind of led to another, and, you know, Brian had said some things to some promoters, and some promoters didn't like the way he acted, or, you know, the way he walked around the locker room. And, yeah, Brian had the look, but some people would argue that he didn't have the talent. And, you know, one thing would lead to another, and, you know, next thing I know, I'm only getting booked two places because people didn't like the way that my partner's attitude was. And it sucks, because it was like, you know, I didn't want to leave him, but at the same point in time, I was like, what's best for business?
In the grand scheme of things, you got to do for you. I said, in the grand scheme of things, you got to do for you. You know, it's all about capital.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I finally had my moment where, you know, we had the Emanon Army, and I kind of took the reins of things and, you know, tried taking control of the Army, and, you know, that's when, you know, everything happened, and I had my moment of clarity. I started going after Mikey every night, and I started using more aggression and being more angry with my, you know, with the way I would perform. If it didn't perform, you know, to what I wanted, I would go out and try to just top that performance the next show, or the next weekend, or, you know, the next night. And, you know, I continued to push myself to be better, to do better. And that's, you know, that's when I started switching up the gear, and I started switching up my marketing scheme, and the way I kind of went about carrying myself in locker rooms. And, you know, it started happening. I went from pretending to be a wrestler to actually being a wrestler. And, you know, I had that moment where I said, you know, I really got to stop playing around. If this is something I want to do, I need to do it right. And I need to stop being a child. You know, it's cool to live a dream, but it's not a dream anymore. It's a job.
Eric Emanon joins us live here on the Talking Wrestling podcast. If I can talk here, you know, as you're taking me through that, it's such a flashback, because I'm reliving all of this, and I'm reliving watching how you grew up in the, not only in the business but in life, because you know, I've known you since you were a kid. I remember, and again, I mean, I can go back to when you used to AIM me. And I'd be like, oh my God, this guy is annoying the hell out of me. But then you sent me a picture of, you know, me minus about 60 pounds and you minus like about 160 pounds. And I'm like, oh my God, you know. You know, to see you grow, and to see, especially in recent years, how you have transformed yourself. The thing about the Emanon boys was that, you know, Brian and you, through an act of God, look like you could pass for brothers. And you guys complemented each other very well. You played the big brother, little brother character very well. The thing that I was noticing from afar, and a lot of people may say the same thing about myself and Tiger, I was able to create my own distance without being too far away, but create my own distance, create my own name, while he did his thing. And then we would kind of come together, and then, you know, split up, and we're, you know, had two separate entities, but being, you know, kind of underneath the same umbrella. I didn't see that happening with you and Brian.
Yeah.
I saw more or less, you know, Brian. Again, it was you in the shadows, so to speak.
Yeah.
It never was more clearer than the time when he won the when he won the Battle Royal or whatever, or the tournament, the Ascension tournament, I think it was.
Yep, he won the Ascension tournament, and I was in a triple threat with Eric Everlast and Tommy Tuton, or whatever the hell his name was, at the beginning of the show, and I got eliminated first round in a squash match by Eric Everlast. And the show, I want to say before that, or 2 shows before that, it could have been after that, but there was a few shows around there where, Brian became part owner of NEW, and he made the executive decision to sit me for a show. And the irony behind it was he told me my ego was getting in the way. And I'll admit it, I had a little bit of a big head, but I mean, compared to some of the people in the locker room at the time, I mean, let's be honest, I didn't exactly have the biggest amount of hot air in my head. Over myself and my character.
You definitely did not.
So it kind of felt like I was being singled out, and I was always under a microscope because I was Brian's partner, and it led to a lot of hard times between me and him because he would always tell me, it's nothing personal, it's business. But with me and him, it was always kind of personal because he felt like I feel like he had to treat me differently because people looked at me as his little brother. And it blows my mind still to this day. I still have people coming up to me going, "Wait, you guys aren't really brothers?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
They're like, "Wait, but you're telling me everything's been a lie?" And I'm like, "Pretty much." I mean, there comes a day where every wrestler has to go and put on their big boy pants and be their 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I'm doing that every day right now because let's be honest, nobody's making money in wrestling right now. Like they make money, but they don't make money.
Right.
We're not in the WWE. We're not wrestling 5 days out of the week. We get guys who will wrestle double shot, triple shot weekends where they're wrestling 2-3 shows a weekend, sometimes 2 shows on Saturdays and a show on Sunday, but we're all either breaking even, making a little bit of money, but we all have 9 to 5s that we gotta go to. We all have families at home,
Exactly. And to your point about that, during a time when they elected to sit you, I remember being in the meeting. Not when they made the decision to sit you. I think that had already been established. But when the decision was made that Brian was going to come after me for the title,
yep.
And they told me
I couldn't do anything. And I remember sitting up in the balcony area, looking down through the one-way shutters that we had, and watching Brian get jumped by, I don't remember who it was, but he was getting jumped, and the crowd's chanting my name, and I knew there was not a thing I could do.
Yeah, and what I think what really caught my eye was the story that I was given, that the script more or less. And the script was that he was to win the Ascension tournament, and then you were coming out for a promo celebrating with him or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong here, because it's been a while. It's a couple kids later now at this point. But you came out, and he was taking the microphone and trying to take the high road and be like, "Yeah, we're going to use this and go get our tag team titles back. Let's go get our tag team titles back." And you were like, "No, Brian, you know what? We got a bigger problem. It's the cartel, and I think you should take that and go after JC." And I'm like, "Really?" I said, what are you trying to do? Make this kid look like, for all intents and purposes, a I mean, come on now. You can't make that decision yourself.
You look like a pushover.
Exactly. And that was from that point was when I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, he needs something better. He needs something better than this. And so that kind of takes us to the failed attempt at the Army in OSPW. Whose idea was that?
Well, the Emanon Army was a mix of me and Brian, as well as some of the booking committee over there. And they, at the time, were getting rid of the Underworld Cartel because, Tiger Smith was retiring, but we all know how that ended.
He took time off.
Very successfully for me, I might add, because of the fact that I was able to take, what was left of the burning army and take a very long 301-day title run with the Junior Television Championship. Later, during that run, joining the Underworld Cartel, which I gotta say has been a dream of mine since, I don't know, about 2004. And, the Army itself was good on paper, but had too many people who wanted to kind of take control of the steering wheel. And I had a lot of ideas and a lot of, points where I would give creative input, and they'd be like, that's cool, but let's try this instead. And I'm like, all right, let's watch this, crash and burn. And that's when we put, I don't even remember what his name was. We had the one manager kid in there who would get in the ring and wrestle every so often. And we had Patrick O'Malley and Michael McKinger who joined the Army. And when they joined, that was awesome. But then that bridge got burned and they disappeared. And that's really when the Emanon Army kind of started, shrinking. And like I said, it was a great idea on paper, but all it was a rehashing of the Underworld Cartel. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's really all it was a rehashing of a top heel tag team, and they were trying to light the fire twice, and it ended. The couple month reign was just a couple months too long. I think we were around because it gave me the ability to go out there and be me and experiment with how I can get a reaction out of the fans doing just heinous things. Like in the Army, we put a steel folding chair on Tripp's neck and pretty much guillotined the kid. So it gave us the opportunity to experiment with some heinous acts to see what the reactions we could get would be.
Mm-hmm. And you found your way to the cartel.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that happen?
More or less what ended up happening was I had come off of literally my run as the Army and started doing what we call the Emanon State of Mind, the thing that I've been doing forever now. And
yeah.
I had what I call the IndyCar Mafia for about 4 years, and it's kind of just a state of mind where you can't accept anything but the best. And if you go out there, it's the whole, no matter where you are on the card, you're the main event. If the main event can't beat you, well, so sorry, maybe I should be in the main event then. Okay. And that's pretty much the mindset I've had for the past couple of years. And I want to go out there and put on a hell of a show, no matter who I'm working, no matter where I am on the card. I can be curtain jerking, I can be popcorn, I can be viscera. I don't care where I am on the card. I'm going to go out there and wrestle like it's my WrestleMania, like it's my main event. Nobody's going to stop me.
Very good.
And like I said, when I had won the championship, more or less, Mikey every night handed the belt over to me, shook my hand, and the whole thing with that was I was just trying to teach him to respect the belt, respect the championship, respect the fact that it's a title. And I can't believe I just called it a belt. It's the first time I've done that in forever. It's a title. It's a championship title. It's not a belt. A belt is what you wear around your pants waist. A championship is something that should have pride with it, no matter what it is. You should carry it as such. You should always wear it around your waist, not on your shoulder. It's just common respect for those that came before you. Mm-hmm. And the actual title, that was the whole thing. Was I was just trying to teach him respect to those around him, and who has come before him, and to respect what he has been given and what he is giving to the fans. And it ended in the ring with a handshake, and then there was an open kind of sign up for the Underworld Cartel in OSPW, and that was the whole cell incident.
Oh God.
And all of that, yeah. And so, which I understand why it was done, and I agree with why it was done, and I'll definitely explain that to you, because I think you'll appreciate what my kind of thoughts were behind that. But there was an open sign up, and that's kind of when I came out to the ring with my mask on, with a hood over it, and the hood tied up tight so you couldn't see my face, and it was brand new gear, so nobody's seen it. It hadn't hit the internet at all. Like, I had said, I'm busting out some new gear tonight, and Tiger comes out, and I walk out in the hood, and I get in the ring, and I spin around, drop down, undo the lace on my hoodie, and he pulls the mask off and throws it in the air, and I just remember the reaction I got. Nobody knew what to say, because it's, I'm joining the bad guys. It's like playing a career with the Boston Red Sox, and then magically signing a contract with the Yankees to go help them out,
Oh, like Jacoby Ellsbury?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Kevin Youkilis, like Johnny Damon. The list goes on, Babe Ruth. Come on,
yeah, it does.
Roger Clemens. You can keep going.
Oh, God. It's funny you mentioned Roger Clemens, because I earlier today I was doing the Susan Waldman voice when Clemens was up in the George Steinbrenner box, where I was doing. I did that randomly, and then the place got quiet and people started laughing. It was ridiculous, but anyway.
I joined the cartel after feuding these guys all over, everywhere, Canada, New York, West Virginia, PA. We spent an entire summer fighting Tiger and Titus everywhere we went. I mean, ECPW, name it. So, the overall thing was, I looked at who he had, and I was like, this dude needs help. And it's not a matter of, I want to watch him crash and burn. It's a matter of I don't believe in what's going on in OSPW, and it's time to take a stand.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
And so I did it. And, I came forth and said, hey, this is something I want to do. I believe in the cause. I believe in the greater good. And, I remember back in 2004, that's what Perez was always talking about, was the greater good. And, it took this long, but finally I understood that the greater good was not for the business, wasn't the greater good for, the cartel. It was the greater good for everybody around us. We were doing what was right to make everything around us be, that neutral pH balance. We kind of balanced out the locker room and made everybody understand that, you guys want to fight, you're going to have to go through us. And if you guys want to try and act like you're going to do something, you're still going to have to go through us. And, that's what I believe in. I believe in the greater good of the Underworld Cartel now. And, yeah, it sucks that it took this long, but, it's something I believe in.
Yeah, that's all right. They already had a small guy in me for so long, so it's all good. Eric Emanon here on the
shoes to fill.
Yeah, oh, maybe. Eric Emanon here on the Talking Wrestling podcast. A couple of more things, Eric, really quickly. The Top Rope Elbow.
Top Rope Elbow.
Our little friendly rivalry here. What's going on? Where did that come from, man? You never used that. Not until I stopped.
You know what? It was one of those things where it was kind of like I was thinking about doing something different, and I'm watching the show, and I'm watching all the flippy doos, and I'm watching all the just crazy punches to the outside, and I'm like, you know what? Why not kick it old school? And so that's when I hit you up on Instagram that one day at the Pier 6 Live show, the P6W Live hashtag, as you would have seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I figured I'd throw you that request and be like, you think I should do it? And when you were like, go ahead, I was like, you know what? It's the first show here. Let's make it big. Let's do something crazy. And so, I went outside of my comfort zone to, throw the elbow drop. And, the rest is kind of history. I had planted that elbow right in Dave Fenway's chest and kind of went from there. After that, it was, Ivy Green I hit with it over in Phelps during a sure shot ladder match.
That's the picture.
Ladder, that was honestly, I think that's one of my favorite photos of all time. You can see it on my Facebook there.
Is that the one that I put up yesterday, advertising you with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one.
One of my favorite shots of me wrestling of all time. Take all the upside down photos of me doing the swanton, standing on ladders. That one, it's just the moment,
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the spine. I looked when I stood on the ropes and I stood up and I did it. I was like, you know what? I really hope somebody gets a photo of this because this looks effing awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. I'll tell you what, that's one of the moves that I personally, on a personal level, that I miss doing. I did enjoy doing the elbow almost more than the frog splash because there's a certain, it doesn't hurt as much as landing the frog splash, but there's a certain amount of elegance and grace, I think, with the elbow. To me, it represents just, something so simple can be done so perfectly and have an effect. And that's what I've always liked about that top rope elbow. Of course, I still think I do it better. But in any event, finally, Eric, where can we see Eric Emanon?
Well, we've got a lot of shows coming up for me, more or less with Old School Professional Wrestling coming up. That's going to be June 8th. I actually have a double shot weekend nonetheless coming up in June. I have the month of May off. Luckily, a few shows got shuffled around, but May 15th I'm actually expecting my son.
Yay! Awesome. Yes.
Do then. I have my first double shot weekend coming back would be Saturday, June 7th at Old School Professional Wrestling out in Buffalo, New York. Don't know what I'm doing out there, but I definitely feel like I'm going to make some sort of impact. And the next night, that Sunday, I'll be at Pier 6 Wrestling on June 8th out in Gates, New York at the Italian American Community Center. So That's going to be pretty good. And you actually brought up earlier, I may be possibly wrestling out in the Connecticut area, Bristol, Connecticut to be specific.
Oh, home of the mothership of sports, huh?
What's that?
I said home of the mothership of sports.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm so excited about it. You know, the offer kind of got brought to me, and that's something that's huge. Is people in this area they talk about, you know, not getting paid or not getting paid enough or this or that, but you know, I'm not going out and begging for bookings. You know, the bookings are rolling into my inbox, and you know, it's not for some shindy fed. It's for a place that draws. Who's going to pay me? You know, money to get there and then money to get back and then some to, you know, actually compensate me for my time after I'm home, you know. And that's another thing is, like, you know, places like OSPW, I'll be honest, I'll throw it out there in the open. Yeah, the promoter doesn't pay me, but there's reasons why. And, you know, yeah, the promoter doesn't pay me, and I'm okay with it because of the fact that that promoter gave me my start. That promoter gave me the respect to put me out there and give me creative control of my own character. That promoter is giving me the ability to go out there and sell my merchandise. Yeah, sure, my merchandise I pay to get done, but no matter what, at the end of the day, I'm making a profit on my merchandise. You know, you go over to tnxbombsquad.com, that's where I'm getting all my shirts printed, and you know, I work with Tiger to get my stuff printed up, and I've never had an issue. And so, you know, I make my profit on my shirts, and that's really how I get paid when I go to Buffalo, is that money I'm making off my merchandise. So when the fans buy my stuff, you know, it's financially helping me. And, you know, yeah, that's not how it should be, but, yeah, at the end of the day, I respect Deacon for, you know, the money he has put in my pocket, not only with experience, but, you know, giving me the ability to go out there and do what I love to do every single month of the year. You know, he gives me the ability to go out and, you know, perform in front of these fans, and has since 2008. I mean, you know, we're going on quite some time that I've been working for this man, where I've made hundreds upon, you know, looking into almost thousands at this point, but in merchandise. You know, whoever thought a kid my size would ever be making, you know, money from fans and being told, oh man, well, you're the reason I come here, you make this fun, you know. So that's really, you know, if I'm not getting paid, you know, by monetary value, there's got to be another reason I'm going. And, you know, it's sometimes it's just the experience, sometimes it's, you know, just to be around the boys in the locker room. Sometimes you just need that, you know. And working for free isn't always working for free, like people put it, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, there are the cases, right, and I agree. There are the cases indeed where working for free is working for free, and then there are the cases where, like you mentioned, the platform is provided, and you know, you make with it what you do. You know, that's a touch and go subject, you know, depending on who you talk to and what the situation is. But
my thing with that has always been there's working for free, and then there's working for free and being appreciated for doing your job. You know, mm-hmm. That's really what it's been at OSPW. Has been, I'm working for free, but I'm making money here, and I'm appreciated for what I do. You know, so
right.
it's I'm helping the product while the product helps me.
Right. All right. Well, Eric, we went a little long, but that's okay because I don't know how much, you know, we use Spreaker.com here, which, you know, a lot of people are starting to use now. Not that I'm giving Spreaker any free plugs here, but I don't know how long of an upload they'll let me, but I'm going to try. And if worst case scenario, I'll just post it to my website. How about that?
Absolutely.
That's how I roll, baby. All right, Eric, I appreciate, again, you can see Eric at OSPW on what day? June 7th?
June 7th at OSPW, June 8th at Pier 6 Wrestling in Gates, New York.
All right, June 7th, Buffalo. June 8th, Gates, a suburb of Rochester. Eric Emanon, I appreciate the vine, man. Thanks for calling. Thanks for being my first guest.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Eric Emanon, ladies and gentlemen. Great interview. Great person. Proud to call him a friend. Proud to call him a brother in the business. So, couldn't have had a better first call. And Eric, I appreciate it, and best of luck to you and to your wife Jess when your son comes next month. And that will do it for week 1. It's finally under the belt, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Eric Emanon for being my guest. I want to thank all of you for all of your support. all of your good vibes, and I appreciate every single one of you. And let's do this again next week, shall we? And I must remind everybody that this is a copyrighted podcast of the Gear Radio Networks, and any rebroadcast or reproduction without the express written permission of Gear Radio Networks or me specifically is strictly prohibited. Next week, Mark House joins us on Talking Wrestling. We'll talk some WWE, we'll talk some local stuff, we'll talk to Mark House, and I can't wait for that. He's another good guy, another good person, another good human being in this business and in the game of life. So look forward to that. Thank you all very much, and until next time, this is JC Money saying good night now.